hey felek saldın beni cevri cepağa hey felek saldın beni cevri cepağa derdim bulgaç yıglap deme sen bir vapağa derdim bulgaç yıglap deme sen bir vapağa derdim bulgaç yıglap deme sen bir vapağa
Welcome to Window to China and Xinyu 101. I'm pleased to welcome Associate Professor Ho-fung, Department of Sociology, the Johns Hopkins University. Welcome to you. Can you introduce yourself? Tell me more about where are you from? What is your specialty?
I'm Ho-fung and I'm now teaching at Johns Hopkins University Sociology. Originally, I was born and raised in Hong Kong, and I research on protests and development issues in the Greater China area and Asia in general.
Hong Kong protests cast a lot of attention in a global level. So what do you think? What is going on in Hong Kong now?
In Hong Kong, what is going on right now is a watershed moment of Hong Kong history. Basically, you can see from the footage on TV news that there's a lot of young people very angry. They occupied some of the main roads in the financial area and near the area where the government headquarters are located, and also another area in downtown Kowloon. The trigger of this protest is that the National People's Congress of China just passed a resolution to dictate that in 2017 Hong Kong will have a direct election of the chief executive, but the candidates are going to be pre-selected by a nomination committee that is going to be controlled by Beijing government. So it makes many people angry because when China and Britain was negotiating about the future of Hong Kong in the 1980s, and then the British government and the Chinese government signed a document called the Sino-British Joint Declaration to settle that the Hong Kong sovereignty will be returned to China in 1997. Many people in Hong Kong are very worried that their liberty, their freedom of press, their freedom to assembly, academic freedom will be violated once Hong Kong becomes part of China. At that time, many Hong Kong people choose to leave Hong Kong and migrate to Canada, Australia, and the US and many other places. And to tame the fear of the Hong Kong people, and the Chinese government make a promise to the Hong Kong people, and also it was also documented in the Sino-British Joint Declaration that after 1997, Hong Kong will maintain its pre-existing freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom to protest, and also Hong Kong will enjoy high level of autonomy within China. That is, besides foreign affairs and military issues that will be taken care of by the Beijing government, all other issues within Hong Kong will be taken care of by the Hong Kong government. And the Hong Kong government will eventually be elected through universal suffrage. So it is a promise that Beijing has made to the Hong Kong people and made to the international community in the 1980s about what Hong Kong will look like after 1997. And after 1997, there's some political reform for example, to make the Legislative Council more open, to give more seats to be to make more seats be popularly elected. But the chief executive of the Hong Kong government after 1997 has been handpicked by Beijing through the election committee, which is composed of tycoons and some very loyal Beijing supporters. So it was not democracy, but the democratic movement and the pro-democracy politicians are patient. They have been waiting and negotiating with China and hoping that Beijing will one day honor its promise of finally bringing true democracy and universal suffrage to Hong Kong in the election of chief executive. So the recent decision by the National People the Congress of China to decide that the chief executive election, popular election in the future, will be based on a candidate that is pre-selected by CCP-controlled nomination committee, make many people in Hong Kong feel disillusioned, and many of them even feel cheated that Beijing was breaking promise, or thinking that Beijing never meant to keep the promise. So it's why many people in Hong Kong are very angry, particularly the young people. They also not only see the failure of Beijing in honoring its promise, they also in the last 17 years after 1997, they also witnessed the deterioration of the freedom of speech and freedom of press and the freedom of assembly in Hong Kong, that many rights and liberty that Hong Kong have been proud of under British rule before 1997, people see it disappearing. So all these things are together make the young people in Hong Kong very angry, so they took to the streets and to start the occupation of some main roads as a bargaining chip to hopefully to put pressure on the government to take back the decision of the National People of Congress. And also they want the current chief executive of Hong Kong, that is C.Y. Leung, to step down because he was seen as a very dictatorial and yes man of Beijing, and people see him as a very dictatorial person. He's very liberal in using the police power to brutally disperse peacefully protesting people. So these all issues add together to lead to this current standoff in Hong Kong.
We understand there are a lot of fears, but you know, Hong Kong has a long history of protest. We have seen that every year, even when there are vigils on the memory of the June 4th, 1989, people seem to understand that why this time this cast attention. And what is the history of protest in Hong Kong?
The protest in Hong Kong has been, yes, you are right, that Hong Kong has a long tradition of protests, and many of these protests, and including this one, is actually quite peaceful. And many U.S. observer of Hong Kong protests is amazed at how polite the protesters while in Europe, in U.S., you see a lot of protesters. Usually throw stones and break windows, but Hong Kong protesters never do it. What is different, what is special about these protests compared to the previous protests is that in previous protest events, the democratic movement, people in the democratic movement, they are just doing a rally or they are marching to the government headquarters, and then these protests are usually be approved by the police, and they stay in the territory designated by the police, or to march along the route pre-designated by the police. This time is different because there is an escalation of protest tactics. That is, they start to occupy the main road to shut down traffic as a strategy or as a tactic to put pressure on the government, because the issue that triggered this protest is more serious. That is the people's expectation or original hope about Beijing will one day finally giving Hong Kong democracy shatter. So people think that it is time to really escalate the action to put more pressure on the government. But there's also a background of this protest, because originally the protest only took place around the government headquarters. It was a class boycott by the university students the week before the occupation started. So it was not an occupation of Main Road. The occupation of Main Road in this protest started only after the government sent police to shoot tear gas to the protesters. And tear gas is something very common in Europe, in US, dealing with protesters who are throwing stone or they are breaking glasses. But it was rarely seen in Hong Kong, particularly provided that the protester are not doing anything destructive or disruptive. So that this occupation actually of this protest started when the police started to use tear gas to try to disperse the crowd gathering outside the government headquarters. And then this use of tear gas against peaceful protesters was never already seen in Hong Kong history. So, and then after the tear gas was shot, I think the government originally estimated that people will be scared and they will go away and the crowd will disperse outside the government. But on the contrary, the shooting of tear gas in the evening of September 28th angered many people, and many more people took to the street to protect and support the students and protest against the use of tear gas and police violence against the originally very peaceful protester. And at the high point, the crowd grew to, according to some estimation, nearly 100,000 people on the streets. And then this is when the occupation of the road started.
I heard about two different protests. One is called Occupy Central, and another is a student protest.
Yes.
Do they? Do the protests get the permission before they are doing that?
Mm-hmm. Actually, it's very two different. But it is very confusing. I know that the Occupy Central was a protest that organized by some university professors and democratic activists. They have been planning for it for more than a year now. The original idea is to occupy some square, some park, or some public space in the financial district of Hong Kong, and then waiting to be handcuffed and arrested by police. So it is an act of civil obedience, but the main point of that Occupy Central is to let these professors, lawyers, and professionals to be arrested by police to create a tense situation and to create a public image of government arresting these professional people. So this is the Occupy Central. This time, they were the students who started the class boycott, and then they, at the last day of the class boycott, they started to occupy part of the government, a little square outside the government headquarters. And then more and more people gathered, and it was not the Occupy Central. It was occupations started with the student, but after the crowd grew larger and larger, and Occupy Central also announced that they are starting their own movement. So the two movements seem to merge, but in the end, when the police started to shoot tear gas, the Occupy Central leaders start to make announcements and advise people and students to leave and go home to avoid bloodshed. But people actually didn't listen to the Occupy Central leaders, and then more and more people come and start to occupy roads. To disrupt traffic, as you see that now the normal traffic are still not restored. So this whole occupation movement is no longer under the control, or it was never under the control of the Occupy Central leaders. Still, though when you see the newspaper in Hong Kong, people are still, the reporters and writers, commentators sometimes still confused and call the current occupation and Occupy Central, but actually they are two different things.
Yeah, I heard about different things too. It's what are the blue ribbon action and the yellow ribbon action?
The yellow ribbon action is in support of the student. Actually, the blue ribbon action is an attempt of the mobilization of the pro-establishment force to organize counter-protests, to protest against the students, to ask them.
Who are they? Who are they, do you think?
There are many people. The worrying development is that some of these blue ribbon people, and people identify them and actually can judge from their action that they're actually thugs and belonging to some gangster organization. As we did that on October 3rd and October 4th, in one occupied site, there are many gangster and thugs and try to go to beat up the students who are peacefully staying in the streets, the occupied site in Hongkong. So they are thugs, they are gangsters. They try to use violence to end the occupation. And there are also some pro-establishment community organizations. They have been quite active from the beginning to support the government, to support the decision of the National People's Congress, and denounce the Occupy Central movement under planning as being troublemaker. So they are people who are from the pro-establishment camp. Some of them are retired police officers, retired civil servants, that they are organized by the government to create a kind of a counter movement against the protesting students and also the Occupy Central people.
What is the aim of the protest for Occupy Central and the student protest? How long is the protest will going on? If they cannot reach the goal, what do you think students can do?
It's really difficult to say because the situation changed day by day. The demand has been asked, has been that the National People's Congress of China to revoke the decision about the election method of the chief executive in 2017 and afterward, and also the stepping stone of CY Leung. So it is difficult to see when or whether the Beijing government will give in to this demand. Particularly that the decision of the National People's Congress is a national level decision. I am not optimistic that Beijing will give in on that. And if they decide to give in on that, to revoke the National People's Congress decision on the election method, it won't be now because it will make Beijing government seem weak in front of the protester. However, the stepping stone of CY Leung is quite a possibility right now. Not necessarily because Beijing will think that to taking CY Leung or sacrificing him to replace him with another chief executive, a Liu Chief executive will tame the students and improve the situation. But also just these 2 days, there's a scandal breaking out. There's an anonymous informants keep providing some very concrete evidence and materials to an Australian newspaper saying that CY Leung, right before he became the chief executive, has received 700 million, I forgot the exact amount, but it's a huge sum of money from an Australian company. And he didn't report it to the government that he has this business deal. And now it seems that the criminal investigation in this will start, and if it is proven to be true, then it is a serious crime, commercial crime of criminal offense that CY Leung committed. And in this situation, that I think his stepping down will be a real possibility. Of course, there's all kind of speculation in Hong Kong right now. There are people who speculate that the information about the charges against CY Leung corruption is actually provided by the Beijing government, that they have the intelligence, they have these materials in hand, Now the Beijing government decided to give up on him, to sacrifice him to stabilize Hong Kong. So many people speculate that it might be the Beijing government that gave the information, Fusan Middleman, to the Australian newspaper to make CY Leung leave office. So of course it is only speculation. Nobody know and nobody can know. But hypothetically, if we imagine that one day CY Leung really step down, it will tame many people's anger, and then some of the people who participate in the occupation might think that it is enough for now, and then they might end the movement in this way. But it is really difficult to say right now. The situation is very unstable, and it is changing day by day.
Why is it called umbrella revolution?
It is accidental because when the police started to disperse the students, the young people gathering outside the government headquarters, before they started to use tear gas, they have been using pepper spray to disperse the crowd. And pepper spray, as you know, that is also a kind of chemicals that some U.S. Police will use to disperse crowds. And it is a kind of a chemicals, if put in contact with eyes or skin, it will be very irritating and even causing some long-term damage. So in the beginning of the protest, the police are spreading this pepper spray to the protester very liberally. So many protesters developed this method to defend themselves against this pepper spray, that is the whole umbrella. They bring an umbrella when they see that the police are starting or about to start spray on them, so they open the umbrella as a shield against this pepper spray. So you can see in a lot of pictures that many protesters are prepared, even though it was not raining, it was not very sunny, so they have they have an umbrella opened, particularly on the front line of the rally and in the protest. So the image when it came to the U.S. media, Western media, they see a lot of colorful umbrellas among the protesters, and it is kind of an interesting image that is rarely seen in other protests. So I think it is how and why some commentators and journalists, because of this image with umbrella, to call this the umbrella revolution.
In Hong Kong history, every time when the protest breaks out, they gain something, several victories than they gained in the past. Mm-hmm. Is there any constructive way this time to help out? Is there anything, just the ending could be the one side wins or another side loses?
In the past, there are two large-scale protests that actually attained victory. One is the 2003. At that time, the Hong Kong government was pressured by the Beijing government to do anti-subversive law legislation. And it's a very draconian law that is going to restrict freedom of press and also freedom of speech. And under the law under consideration at that time, the law will give, if it's passed, then it will give the government authority to arrest people who have links with foreign organization designated to be subversive organization unfriendly to the Chinese government. And also the government can also even hold librarian accountable for books that are designated to be subversive and unfriendly to the Chinese government. So it is a very serious matter at that time. So there was huge demonstration and huge rally in 2003, and under the pressure of the people, that the Hong Kong government backed down and shelved the anti-subversive law legislation, and it was not reenacted until today. So it is a victory. Another time is the 2011 that there was a national education curriculum under consideration by the government, and again there was a huge rally, a huge outcry from the people, from the students, and because they look at the curriculum, then they think that, and they find that it is like brainwashing education to the kids. So again, under that huge popular pressure, the government backed down and shelved the curriculum. This time is different because the origin of the protest and the grievances of the protest is not from the local Hong Kong government, but more from the National People Congress in Beijing about its decision. It will be more difficult for the government to compromise and then give in to this demand because it involves the central government. If the central government back down in front of popular pressure, then it will find itself in a situation that people will see it weak, and whichever leader responsible for making a decision to make concession to the students will be attacked by their opponents within the Chinese government. So I don't think this time will be as easy as the last two times when large-scale popular protests can gain victory in Hong Kong. But again, that one immediate possibility is that the CY Leung might actually step down in one way or other in the short term. And if it happens, that the question is whether protesters see it as a partial victory enough, that is enough for them to end occupation and go home, or some people think that it is not enough and they will be determined to stay on. But right now, it seems that the protesters are very determined. They are not at the time of in a rush to leave.
I think we have to wait to see it.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. Then we will wrap up. Thank you for watching. We will see you next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.